All right, I think we're live. My name is David Kim. I'm with the DK Group and Village Properties here in Santa Barbara and Montecito.
Yeah, I'm Devin Wong, David's right-hand man.
Same old, same old. So the reason we're doing this podcast idea, I mean, we've been talking about it for only about 2 years, so it takes about that long before we are able to get to it. I guess it takes a pandemic for us to finally do it.
Yeah.
But we just figured we do these Zoom conferences once a week, and we're just sharing the insights that we have as far as what we're seeing in our local market, statewide, nationwide, talking about the effects to our local community as well. And so we just figured this would be a good opportunity for us to have that same type of conversation that we're already having, but broadcast it to whoever else is interested. So I think the goal, at least for now, is we're going to try to do this once a week. And that's going to really be what we strive for. And we'll be focusing, again, there's going to be a lot of real estate centric talk, but we also want to go beyond that. Again, a lot of real estate in Santa Barbara is intertwined with the local community, and we both live here, and we love our restaurants and our coffee shops and all of our local businesses, our gyms, and we want to try to support them as best we can, especially during these really trying times. So that's really going to be the focus here. Anything to add on that?
No, I think this is just a good way to kind of connect with people. You know, we've been lacking that face to face, and that's kind of what we do for a living. So I think this is just an avenue for people to see what we're up to and see how we can, bring value to other people.
Yeah, absolutely. We miss seeing you, everybody. So this is as close as we're going to get for now.
Yeah.
So anyhow, I think we'll just jump right into what we want to talk about. And obviously the big, great elephant in the room is just the whole COVID-19 and the impacts that's having to, society as a whole, but also to our market. And I'll let Devin sort of touch on some of the things that we've been discussing.
Yeah, so I pulled up some coronavirus statistics yesterday. So these are about as up to date as they can be. We're showing 440 cases in Santa Barbara County. 47 of those are in Santa Barbara. Only 7 cases confirmed in Goleta, which I thought was pretty interesting. Lompoc at 72 and Santa Maria at 116. Those are both leading the pack here locally. And then amongst healthcare workers, there's 54 cases. And then out of all those 440 total cases, they've had 5 deaths. So just pretty grim news. But I think with everybody doing what they can to flatten the curve, I think there are brighter days ahead, hopefully.
Right, and just to clarify, what I'm hearing at least is the reason why we see such high numbers in Lompoc is because of the penitentiary there, the prison in Lompoc, and that's where the outbreak was sort of concentrated.
Yeah, absolutely. And then another thing, David, you and I had chatted about before we started this was just kind of a sense that maybe some of the more blue collar jobs are getting more impacted, both financially and then health wise. If you can work remotely or work from home, you not only are you healthier and safer, but you're probably still making at least some income. Whereas the people that have to show up for work maybe it might be the most affected throughout this.
Right, which is tough, and that's why you see, I think, on a nationwide level too, it's some of the kind of more disenfranchised demographics that are being greatly affected by this. So.
Absolutely.
And at the end of the day, I mean, every death obviously is somebody's family member, right? Someone has loved ones, and it's a big deal. But when we look at our numbers of cases and deaths compared to other areas, we are pretty fortunate here in Santa Barbara, and I attribute that to just the layout of our area, right? I mean, we don't have really dense centers. Obviously there's, the downtown like State Street and everything, but a lot of that's closed off, and people have been really practicing their social distancing. All the grocery stores have you, line up, you're 6 feet apart. They're only letting a certain amount of people in at a time. So I really attribute a lot of the success, and again, that's relatively speaking, but a lot of that success based on how seriously everybody here in Santa Barbara has been taking it.
Yeah, and then that kind of segues into how that has impacted us, professionally at least, which is, in Santa Barbara County, at least, we're pretty fortunate compared to other places. We can still operate, we can still buy and sell real estate here. I know other towns and states don't have it as lucky, but
yeah, Santa Barbara's been deemed an essential job.
Yeah,
or I'm sorry, real estate, has been deemed essential.
Yeah. Which is, fortunate for us, work-wise, but also for our clients, they can still do stuff. And this gets into our next topic, which is kind of how, David, you and I have sort of adjusted our workflow and our processes to kind of fit these times. We can't do public open houses. We're supposed to minimize all of the in-person activities that we can. So if you want to touch on some of the stuff that we've been doing digitally to kind of work through this.
Yeah, and just to kind of back up a little bit, I mean, we are still allowed to work in a capacity to do a real estate transaction, and we are strongly encouraged to limit any in-person contact. However, there are times when a photographer needs to go shoot a property, a listing that's coming up, or we need inspectors or appraisers to come and take a look at the property. What we need now is basically anyone who's going to enter the property, whether it's a buyer, an agent, their inspectors needs to sign a form, a COVID-19 form that, that basically releases the seller of liability. And then they have to assert that they haven't been exposed to their knowledge, haven't been exposed to COVID-19 in the last 14 days. Everything's supposed to be sanitized. You're wearing gloves, face coverings, booties. It feels very strange. I mean, to be honest, I've showed a couple properties since all this has happened, and it feels bizarre where you and your clients are all covered up and barely seeing each other. You're not shaking hands, you're not doing fist bumps or anything. It's just, but I also, again, going back, I attribute that to why we're faring better than other areas here in Santa Barbara, because everybody seems to be respecting that.
It has been a little bit weird. I've had a couple showings at one of my listings where I don't even get out of the car. I open up the property, turn lights on, leave doors open, then I just get back in the car and have the buyer and the buyer's agent go through on their own. So it's a bit weird.
Yeah. It's funny, you see those memes of people saying like 2019, you'd be like a total like sleaze or something, it'd be so weird wearing a face mask and showing up. And nowadays that's like what's encouraged and recommended. So just kind of interesting how the times have changed and what's acceptable and not just acceptable, but what's encouraged. Other things that we're doing in lieu of all of this, and again, whether a house can be shown or not, we are just working to accommodate as many people as possible. Some people just don't feel comfortable walking into a listing or a property, so we totally get that and understand that. So we've been doing virtual tours, 3D tours. One of the companies we use is Matterport, and they basically do a virtual walkthrough of the entire property. And so if you don't feel comfortable walking through a house, this is the next best thing, right? You get to get on your computer and basically from any point in the house, you get to do a 360 view. And so that's one thing that we're doing to just accommodate and make adjustments during this market. And then Devin, you actually had a really good experience virtually staging your listing.
Yeah. So if people don't know what staging is, that's typically when, if you have a listing and there's either not a lot or no furniture in the property, you'll bring furniture in, you'll bring decor in, mirrors, flowers, whatever you want to make the property look its best. So in a normal market, we generally advise all of our sellers to do that if they're willing to. In this kind of, remote environment, that's a little bit frowned upon from multiple perspectives. I mean, that we don't want to put the stagers at risk. And there's even been times where they may or may not be deemed essential, but we don't want to put the stagers' health at risk. We don't want to put the sellers at risk by having any more people than there absolutely needs to be in the house. So yeah, we used virtual staging on my listing just a few weeks ago, and I think, Dave, you can vouch. I think it came out probably better than both of us anticipated.
Yeah, it's incredible. We tried this maybe a year ago, maybe a year and a half ago. We tried this with another listing, and I was like, this is terrible. I'll never do this again. And it's amazing in that year and a half how the technology has advanced so much to where the listing that you got virtually staged, it's like you can't tell, right? Like you actually have to put a disclaimer in your listing saying that this is virtually staged or digitally staged, because it's so you can't tell the difference.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's been a big asset for that listing. I know at least a handful of people have reached out and, have had very complimentary things to say. And that's not just agents, but that's also buyers looking at the property. It's also potential future sellers that are seeing what we're doing for our listings and how that might, impact them in the future if they decide to list with us. So that virtual staging has been a really great tool.
Yeah. Yeah. And again, I just, to be completely honest, all of this stuff is great. And they're tools that I think we have to use, right? Like in this environment, these are the things that we have to do when we're providing a service to our sellers and to our buyers. We want to be giving them all of the best resources that are available, that are out there. But it just still makes me wonder, how many people would actually complete a transaction from start to finish without ever having walked into the property, And I think that still remains to be seen. Maybe it is happening, maybe up in, more dense areas like the Bay Area, maybe stuff like that's happening.
Mm-hmm.
We just don't see a lot of truly sight unseen sales.
Yeah, it's a valid point. I mean, that could be not just the tool we use in this time, but maybe going forward. I know at least Matterport, you can actually take their tours and you can throw on a VR, virtual reality headset and actually, move your head and it really moves like you're in the property. So wouldn't surprise me.
I've been wondering when VR was gonna actually become commonplace in real estate. This might be the impetus, right?
Could very well be. Yeah.
Yeah. Interesting. Well, long story short, we obviously are trying to stay on the forefront, stay on the cutting edge of these technologies. So if and when the day comes when you are putting on your Oculus or whatever the company is that does the VR goggles, we're going to be in that too. So
absolutely.
So anyhow, those are some of the changes that we've been making, and so far it's been good. Again, a lot of good reception. And again, at the end of the day, we're just trying to accommodate as many people as is possible here. What are you seeing with the market here in general, Devin?
Yeah, so again, we've been pulling numbers all throughout this just to keep our finger on the pulse. The kind of overall trends, one of them is that we're seeing just a sort of drop in overall transactions. Right. I mean, there's going to be fewer buyers, fewer sellers, just generally speaking. That's not unexpected, but, there's still a healthy amount going on. I mean, like we talked about earlier, real estate is still essential in our area. So these transactions can take place. We saw an initial wave of listings that were either canceled or withdrawn and pulled off the market. If you want to read between the lines there, that might be sellers who were maybe having fears about the virus coming into their property with, a bunch of buyers touring it. But that initial wave of canceled and withdrawns has subsided and we're kind of stabilized for the moment. And then I'll just jump into some numbers here did you have something to say there, Dave?
No.
Okay. So some actual numbers here. we're seeing a lot of activity below $2 million. So looking back in March, in all of March, Goleta had 43 sales, and this is, homes, PUDs, and condos. So there was 43 sales. Only one of those was over $2 million. So very,
Wow.
very rare.
Yeah.
Santa Barbara, over the same time frame, had 58 total transactions, and only 4 of those were below 2 million. So there's a clear trend there. We're seeing that price point where people, might be in buying their first home, or selling their first home, and they have a real need or a real want to, buy and sell. Those people are very active. Over the $2 million mark, where you might find people either don't have that urgent need to buy or sell, or maybe they have a second, third home, they don't have to do anything right now, a little bit less activity. Just this past week, if we want to get more, current with these statistics, this past week in our market, we had 18 properties go pending. So go from active into escrow. Out of those 18, only 2 were over 2 million.
Oh, wow.
There was 9 closings in the last week. Only 1 was over 2 million, and that actually brings us to you, David, because you found your crown jewel transaction.
Yeah. So, this is the transaction that I was mentioning about. We went under contract before all of the shutdown and shelter in place started happening. And these are my clients from Texas, and they've been dreaming of coming here to Santa Barbara, Montecito area specifically, for probably 20 years. And so now was the time. And of course, so we negotiate this offer up front, and then we go under contract. And like a week later is when, Governor Newsom declares a shelter in place. And luckily for us, my buyers did fly out from Texas in that first week, and I was able to get all the inspectors that we needed up front. And so that initial wave of inspections, they were able to meet all the inspectors, be on site with them. And then once the shelter in place happened, everything could be done remotely because they had already met these inspectors. They trusted them. They could get on the phone. They could do a FaceTime, what have you. So, but just very, very interesting to go through an entire transaction with protocols, processes just changing day to day, right? Like our disclosures that we have to use, I think they get changed every week, amended every week. So a disclosure that is drafted by the California Association of Realtors and their whole team of attorneys will be presenting that, and then a week later they'll have a revised version, and then the next week they'll have more disclosure and revised version. So it's been, a little bit of a challenge to keep up on all that, but and then again, kind of going to your point about that market being above 2 million, and maybe that being a little bit more discretionary income for a lot of that market. For my clients specifically, they really had a motivation to be here in Santa Barbara, Montecito. They had told me, we've been looking for maybe 6 months, and they had told me that they just didn't want to spend another summer in Texas. And so that's where you kind of see where people who are still making moves during this, this outbreak, this pandemic times, they have a motivation. We're hearing from other people who are trying to move closer to family members. That makes a lot of sense too. What we're seeing too is just last week, I got 2 calls from different people who are trying to move out of Seattle here to Santa Barbara. And that kind of goes again to like how well we've fared, again, relatively speaking, how well we've fared than other areas, and where we're spread out. There's plenty of room to still do stuff outside and be distanced from everybody. And, our weather here, that's always been a motivation for people. We have a Mediterranean climate, which is, just mild year round.
Mm-hmm.
Today's a little warm. That's why I'm wearing the Hawaiian shirt. It feels a little bit like Hawaii to me right now.
You got your board shorts too, right?
Yeah, no, I'm wearing slacks. I got the feel going. I'm not cutting corners. But yeah, so anyhow, I mean, yeah, great to have a sale at, over 6 million, especially in this market. but these were people that were going to make a deal happen, I think, no matter what, right? And
yeah, I think, obviously they had their own motivations, but they probably wouldn't have been able to achieve their goal without you. I mean, based on the tools and the processes that we've been doing since the pandemic started, I think that was a major enabling factor for them. So
I think luckily we'd already been doing so much digitally anyways, right? And so
yeah,
I think they appreciated that from day one, because it's not like they were going to hop on a plane just to come and sign a contract or do paperwork. So, we had a lot of in-person meetings, leading up to this point. And so again, the trust was established. They knew how to operate it. I mean, to be honest, I think we probably wrote 3 offers that didn't happen before this one. So
yeah,
we'd had some practice, and so it was good that we were already positioned. And I think, like you said, this is probably just good practice to have moving forward. Anyways, we don't know how long the distancing is going to be in place, and so just having everything prepared and a solid business plan moving forward is good.
mm-hmm. Absolutely, yeah.
Anything else about the market? I mean, I think what I'm just looking. I'm trying to look up a email that I saw, but it looks like home sales actually reached record levels in February. In the last decade, February, just a couple months ago, was at record levels for existing home sales. And then in March, they dipped 9%. And
Mm-hmm.
so, it still remains to be seen what's happened in April, but this sort of coincides with the numbers that you just mentioned, where you were still seeing some activity, and especially in that kind of below 2 million range. But once you get above 2 million, it just
Mm-hmm.
seems to be a little bit softer right now.
Yeah, one graph that I saw of our local data, just looking at the total number of transactions that are happening. So traditionally, you got a slower January, February, and then springtime ramps up. Summer's kind of peak, and then it goes back down. And absolutely, the January, February timeframe was right along with what you'd expect. The March timeframe looked as if you didn't experience that seasonal uptick, but rather just kind of held from the January, February approach. So it's, we're not in an ideal setting right now, but it's certainly not as bad as it could be, or maybe as bad as it is in some other areas.
Right. Yeah. So Santa Barbara, again, is always going to have some attraction, some allure. And again, I think at the end of the day, what you're hearing from people is people are going to move if they have a need to move. But if they don't have that need, if it was just more of a kind of like a discretionary purchase, I think those are the people that you're seeing waiting this out, seeing what happens. And things change day to day. So we'll see what happens. I mean, I just got a call. I had some clients that I'd been showing this house, and they're kind of hemming and hawing about it. Because again, just the way the market is, they don't feel incredibly motivated to make an offer the first day they saw it, even though they liked the house the first day they saw it. And sure enough, I get a call from the agent. They have 2 offers on it now. So, and this is right around that kind of between $1 million and $1.2 million range in Santa Barbara.
Yeah, there's a surprising amount of demand out there still. That hasn't changed for people. What's really, I think the factor is just, whether you lost your job or not. I mean, if you're still working and you still have that eagerness to buy, you're probably going to make it happen. And then just your risk, aversion, in as far as coronavirus is concerned, some people might be dissuaded by that. But if you're not, and the agents are taking all the precautions, you can absolutely still make the move.
Yeah. So anyhow, we're obviously keeping close eye on what's happening here in the market. And let's see here. Devin, you had talked to or heard a panel of some of our escrow and title officers here in town, and then also some of our lenders, which is another big facet to the real estate transaction process, right? You have the realtors who are representing the buyers and sellers, negotiating the offer, and then putting that together. And then once you have that, at least in California, we use escrow as the neutral third party that sort of facilitates the transaction. And then the lenders are the ones, most of the time, if a buyer's getting a loan or a mortgage, that's who they're using.
Yeah. So this panel was put on by the Santa Barbara Association of Realtors, and it was excellent. They had a couple escrow officers, a couple local lenders, and then a fair amount of agents were tuning in. But what the escrow officers were saying, and again, these are escrow officers that we work with regularly. We trust them; they're top notch. They're saying, at least logistically, functionally from their end of the deal, they're not having too many hiccups. I mean, they can still process deals. They can still get these transactions rolling. Now, obviously, buyers and sellers might be backing out of deals here and there, but as far as escrow is concerned, they really sounded like they could operate just almost as normal, and process these transactions. We had a couple of lenders on that panel as well. And in general, it's kind of business as somewhat usual. Obviously, you're going to have some instability in interest rates. We've heard some stories here and there of lenders having to maybe back out of a deal because their funding went away, or something like that. But in general, it was a fairly rosy picture from the lending side. I mean, obviously, the lower you are on the loan volume, if you're just one of these conforming loans, kind of on that low range, you're going to have much better luck. It's
Right.
As you start to climb the ladder into these jumbo loans where you start seeing a little bit more turbulence. But that
Right,
changes.
that's what I'm hearing. I'm hearing the jumbo product is very hit or miss, right? Especially if you're planning to put less than 20% down, which a month ago or 2 months ago, that was a no-brainer. You could put 10% down and still get a really solid jumbo product. And that's what you're seeing, at least what I'm being told, that's what you're seeing disappear right now.
No, I think that's accurate, and that, without a doubt, that will have an impact on that trend we talked about earlier about the lack of transactions over 2 million. I mean, this no doubt has an impact on that. So that was interesting. Both of the lenders that were on the panel, they cautioned, and this is a massive topic, but just the mortgage forbearance issue we'll just touch on briefly. Both of the lenders that were on the panel, they obviously, if you're in the scenario where you really need that and you don't have the income that you normally do to make your payment and your hands are tied, that might be a good option for you. But they really cautioned the folks who maybe don't absolutely need to skip a payment or two on your mortgage. They said there might be another shoe dropping on that front, right? There could be some unforeseen negative consequence that not even the lenders are aware of right now. So I think we would just caution people, do your due diligence on that, talk to your lender.
Yeah.
Really only act if you absolutely have to on that regard.
And to that point, that's exactly right. And even when the lenders were talking about doing mortgage forbearances, there was a little bit of confusion between what that meant. And my understanding now is a lot of times what forbearance means is if they're saying, okay, well, you don't have to pay your mortgage in the next 3 months. Well, when that 3 months is up, you have to pay it in full. And so be prepared for that if this is the route you're going to go. I've heard from other people where the lender will just take that 3 months and add it on to the end of your mortgage, which may not have that big of an effect on you, right? Like if you have 25 years left on a 30-year mortgage and you're adding 3 months onto the back end, well, again, talk to your lender, but that seems less stressful and dire as a forbearance, in my understanding of what it is. Whereas at the end of that term, whether it's 3 months or 6 months, you have to pay that entire amount in full. So just be aware. That was something that I wasn't even sure was the case. And the more I'm looking into it, I mean, I even looked at our mortgage just out of curiosity, because you can just go online and ask, what does it look like to do this forbearance? And that's exactly what it told me, was that the full amount would be due at the end of the 3 month term.
Yeah, there's no free lunch, I think, is the takeaway, huh?
Yeah, Econ 101.
Speaking of econ, that's probably a good segue there.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I'm probably not going to prattle on too much about this. We may do another podcast dealing with the recent UCSB Economic Forecast, which they usually host at the Granada Theater, and it's usually standing room only, just totally packed. And obviously under the current situation, it was done as a podcast, similar to what we're doing here. But, you know, it was interesting. They had Peter Rupert, who is the head of the economics department at UCSB. They had the infectious disease doctor at Cottage Hospital. They had the gal who owns the Lark and Lucky Penny. I think her name's Sherry Villanueva. They had the president and COO of Montecito Bank and Trust. And so it was just really insightful to see, you know, and this was 2 weeks ago. And I think things have been changed since 2 weeks ago when they did that economic forecast. But to just hear what all of these people who are working in different facets of our local Santa Barbara community, what they're seeing as the effects. And I think something that struck me was the infectious disease doctor at Cottage just mentioned that she was humbled to hear what an effect this was having on businesses, because in her mind, in her field, she's focusing on health, right? Healthcare and lives. But Peter Rupert made a distinction between lives and livelihood, right? And livelihood being all the economic factors that are coming into play here since the pandemic started. You know, like the unemployment, I think the latest count was 26.5 million jobs lost in the US. So, you know, that's a 16% decrease, or, you know, 16% of the job force gone in 5 weeks, you know, so we've just never seen a time like that. And I want to preface, I'm not being like doom and gloom. I'm just giving the facts, the numbers here. And I'm one of the people that is a firm believer. I don't think I'm too Pollyanna or anything, but I'm a firm believer that we will climb out of this. And so, yeah, anyhow, we'll touch on the UCS, get more into the details of the economic forecast another time. But if we haven't prattled your ears off enough, let's just talk about some of the kind of the lighter subject matter. And so it's just interesting because Devin and I usually see each other pretty much every day, and I don't think we've seen each other once in person since this has happened. We'll do the Demolition Man. But Devin, what would you say? What's your favorite takeout? What's been your favorite takeout?
So yeah, we've been mostly cooking at home when we have groceries and the fridge is stocked. But you know, we have indulged a couple times going downtown. But I will say that probably the most clutch has been takeout at Captain Fatty's.
Oh, so good.
in Goleta. So if you don't know, yeah, Captain Fatty's local brewery. They've been awesome. They have their roll-up door in the back, rolled up. They've got a table. Everyone's, you know, mask and gloves. All the employees are in there. You don't even step inside. You
Nice.
can order on your phone. You pay on your phone, and you just pick it up there. And you know what? In these times, that's been a much needed escape for sure.
Right. And incredible food and beer, and you know, and obviously supporting local too, which is great.
Yeah. What about you? What's been your go-to?
Yeah, I mean, one of our, and this is somewhere we would take the kids just because it's somewhere they can run around and can be noisy, and we don't feel bad for everyone else around us. But we've been going to the public market downtown.
Yeah.
And so what we actually discovered is through Restaurant Connection, which is another local SB company, you can actually order from the public market, but you don't have to just choose one vendor. You can get multiple different vendors. And so with the way our family is, it's like, you know, my wife is going to want sushi, and I'm going to want the Thai curry noodles, and my daughters are going to want a, you know, kids quesadilla with rice and beans from Corazon. And so we're able to, you know, fulfill everyone's needs with just that kind of one-stop shop. And same thing, they'll actually deliver it to you. You can ask for no contact delivery. They'll just drop it at your front door. And then again, that makes it pretty easy. The other place that we've loved, and again, another place that we miss actually going into because it was so fun going in there, is Los Agaves. And, you know, I get my cravings all the time for, they have these beer battered fish and shrimp tacos that are so good. And so we definitely like supporting them too. Carlos, the owner, is a local guy, and just such a good guy, one of the hardest workers I know. And so anyhow, the food's delicious anyways, but it also feels good to try to be helping them out too.
Yeah, exactly. I'm sure they appreciate every order that's coming in. So it's a good thing to all around.
Yeah, so take notes, everybody. These are some good spots if you're not going there right now.
Yeah, the next little topic we have there is, what are you missing the most in these times? Whether that's something in your day to day or big picture or what.
Yeah, I think the thing that comes to mind right now is I'm missing jujitsu the most. So I've been training Brazilian jiu-jitsu for a little over 5 years. And I was never like trying to be a world champion or anything, competing like that. But it was definitely like an outlet for me. It was probably my primary source of exercise. And you just can't get a workout like that, right? Where you're trying to kill the other person and they're trying to kill you. So, I've just been missing that sort of intensity. I've been doing whatever I can at home, like push-ups and crunches and going for little runs. And it's okay, but I definitely miss hugging big sweaty dudes.
I think you're alone on that one. I'm not
Yeah,
missing that.
it's an acquired taste.
No, I think for me, yeah, just like you, we're both active outdoors types, that's been tough. Yeah, just probably the beach. I mean, gosh, it's been, 70, 80 the last few days. That's been rough, but, and also just family. I mean, you've got your two kids at home. We haven't been able to see, parents, siblings, grandparents or anything. That's been a challenge. So just trying to do stuff like this, trying to get that FaceTime.
I know. There's a lot of FaceTime been going on with the grandmas. So, yeah.
Yeah, it's funny. We like to hang out with friends and stuff, but mostly we're homebodies. And I wish I would have known about these like Zoom happy hours, like because that's probably ideal setup for.
We're just gonna keep it going, even when the distancing gets relaxed.
Yeah, exactly. What do we got next here? Will you now be a doomsday prepper? Is that going to be something you do now?
I don't think so. I mean, this has definitely like enlightened me to certain things. I think my wife definitely is more the prepper than me, and not to like a gnarly extent, but I think that's always been our dynamic is she's very organized and on top of it. And I've been kind of more spontaneous with things. So, yeah, I mean, it's definitely opened my eyes to certain things, but I don't think I'll ever be full prepper mode.
Yeah, and I think one thing that this has opened my eyes to is the amount of people out there that either overreact or have a like a misperception of what is valuable in these times, right? Like you're seeing the big runs on toilet paper,
Yeah,
on drinking water, on these things that really are tangential to the issue.
yeah,
So that's been a little bit interesting.
yeah. Yeah, I saw somebody do online a breakdown of like how many sheets are in a roll of toilet paper and how many rolls of toilet paper are in a pack and how many packs people are buying and like how long it would take you to go through that. And it's like 20 years, based on how much people were consuming that early on. Now all the stores have, rationed amounts. You can only buy one pack. It still sells out. So yeah, interesting. I think that's part of the reason why I can't do it. I'm just like, I can't be that guy,
You're just walking up to the checkout line, just getting a bunch of glares, huh?
Yeah. No, thank you.
Yeah.
What are some funny things that you've been experiencing in your day-to-day life?
Oh my gosh. Well, we've been mostly at home, so I mean, we've been duking it out with our cat a little bit. She's not used to us being home all day, so
yeah,
I think that's been one thing. But
an antisocial cat, huh?
Yeah, just the weird stuff, like I talked about earlier, going to a showing and opening the property, and you just look from your car and like wave at people. I mean, that's just such a weird like fishbowl kind of experience. It's been weird, but I will say one thing. So if we do make a grocery run or something, in my head, I'm just, when I see people doing stuff, either, big groups or whatever, stuff that's not helping the greater good, I always comment on it. And so my wife now has given me a limit of 2 comments when we go driving somewhere in public. She's like, all right, you can say 2 things. You can talk trash about 2 situations that you see, and that's it.
Man, how many were you at if she had to cut it down to 2?
No comment, no comment.
Yeah. Double digits, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah, again, just seeing some pictures of people, it's crazy. You know, the people wearing a wetsuit and a full like snorkel mask, like that's gonna do anything. That just like blows my mind. It's so funny. I saw one where somebody either taped or super glued like those water noodles, those pool noodles, all around their bodies, so that like nobody could get around them. Just like noodle spikes all over.
Oh, that's funny, man.
I wish I almost like kind of just want to do that just to do it.
Drastic times.
Yeah. I don't know. Like the funniest things that happen around the house are just like with 2 little girls at home and just like trying to keep them in good spirits and from like not going totally stir crazy is just letting them do whatever they want, to me at least. So like my older one just got a full makeup set. It was like a late birthday present. And so of course she wanted to give me a pedicure, which you can't see right now, but I got little pink nails and I had glitter eyeshadow. So I try to wash it off, but if you've noticed a little bit of glitter,
I didn't know. You were looking lighter and brighter these days, but I didn't know what it was.
That wasn't me trying something new, so don't worry. That was me trying to keep my daughters happy.
Well, it worked.
Yeah. Well, cool. You know, this podcast went from supposing to be 5 minutes to probably 20 minutes, I'm guessing. So if you've stuck with us the whole time, thank you so much. Again, this is our first go. Obviously, a few hiccups. I need to learn how to turn off my text messages on my computer from pinging. But yeah, feel free to give us feedback, give us comments, anything that you want to hear about, anything that you liked, didn't like. We have thick skin, so we can take it.
Awesome. Cool. Nice work.
Good to see you, buddy.
All right, man.
Okay. Signing off. See you guys.